All right, let's switch over to the movie mode. So we're going to turn the collar to the movie setting, and then we're going to press the live view button to activate the movie setting so that we get what looks like live view on the back of the camera, but it will be cropped into a 16:9 aspect ratio. We can start and stop our movies. It's one press to start, one press to stop. And a lot of the controls that we've already talked about in live view are going to be applicable here. And so we don't need to stop and talk about these a lot, but you can zoom in, you can check focus, then you can start recording for confirming that you have best focus. You'll be able to navigate with the focusing bracket by using either the little touchpad on the back or the joystick. And there is a little thing on the camera called indices, and this is done with the preview button up in front. And if you were recording, let's say you're recording a football game, and every time somebody made a score, you wanted to kind of mark where that was, you would just reach around to the front of the camera and press that button on the front of the camera, this little preview button right up here in the front, and it's going to mark an invisible little index. It's a bookmark so that you can come back to that when you play your videos back. Because when you play your videos back, there'll be a little secret control that you jump to those sections that you press that little index. If you press the I button, you're going to have access to changing a bunch of the settings for movie recording. We're going to go through this when we get into the menu setting. You can also press the info button that changes your grids and your virtual horizon and how much clutter you have on top of your image, depending on which information you're needing to look at. So very much the same controls that you would see in live view. So the focusing system works the same way. You would press the autofocusing button on the side, and the controls are going to be basically identical. You'll have the single versus full time. In the video, I would say that you're going to be kind of split into two different camps. And let's go with the mom and pop's weekend video shooter who just occasionally shoots a little bit of video. You might like the camera in the AFF mode, because as it's recording video, it'll constantly be searching for focus. And so little Junior comes running towards you, that focus is going to adjust for that subject that has come closer. For the more serious photographer, they're either going to want to have it in AFS or probably go all the way to full manual so that you're adjusting your manual focus before each and every shot. By turning the front dial, you can change the area mode on this. And so it does work pretty well with the tracking and the face priority. We saw earlier, I like it in the normal or the wide area for most basic shooting so that I can be very specific about where I point the camera and having it track that particular subject, or at least pick up on it. We also have our touchscreen settings, which we looked at earlier. Those can be used in the video as well. As far as video playback goes, you're going to get to a video. There'll be the little circle with the arrow through it. And then you'll be able to hit the play button, which is the center button. And then the various controls around that are going to be for pausing it, stopping it, going fast forward and backwards. So if you remember the indexes that we talked about just a moment ago, you can jump 10 seconds forward or back with the back dial, but with the front dial you can jump to the indexes. And so if you've recorded an event that has several events that you've marked, you can just jump back and forth and find those marks very quickly with that front dial. Over on the left side, the plus and minus become volume controls. And so if you want a little bit more volume when you're playing your movies back, over there. And then with the I button, you can do a bit of editing. So if you want to change the start point or the end point of your video, you can do a little of in-camera editing, you might say. So some of the stats about shooting movies, these come in MPEG-4 files, which are pretty common files that you should be able to work with on most all devices out there right now. There is a 4 gigabyte limit. If you go over 4 gigs, it makes a new file with the next frame, so you don't lose any video information. They're just in different folders of information. There is a full 30-minute limit, so you're not able to go beyond 30 minutes. Now, the camera does shoot 4K in camera, but you can also shoot it external if you want it as well, and it's an uncompressed 4K video that's going to be sent out through the HDMI port on the camera. Talked about the preview for the indexes. So the resolutions, it's a 4K or it's a full HD or it's a standard HD format on this. And in getting into, I mean, we're all kind of new into 4K. At least I'm kind of new into 4K now. And I don't know if you know this, but there's two different 4Ks. And so this is using 4K UHD, which indicates that it's 4,000 pixels, but it's not really 4,000, it's 3840, okay? And so Nikon went with what's called 4K UHD, which has the same 16:9 aspect ratio as HD. There is something else that is used in other parts of the movie industry, TV industry, called DCI 4K, which is 4,096 pixels by 2160 pixels and has an aspect ratio of 17:9 and is a little bit different. It's pretty close, but there are some subtle differences. And for those of you in the video world who are organizing all this data, get your things in a line and make things similar. All right, so there are a variety of bit rates that you're going to get, which is how fast data is being stored to the memory cards. And so you can see at 3840 by 2160, 144 megabits per second, you are having a lot of data stored to that memory card very quickly. So if you are wanting to shoot 4K, plan on buying bigger and faster memory cards. There will be a variety of frame rates that you can choose. Not all frame rates are available at all resolutions. You'll see those limitations when we get into the menu. This device is a still photography machine. When you're shooting photos, if you want to take a photo, you can press down on the shutter release and take a photo, albeit it will be cropped a little bit into a 16:9 aspect ratio. If you are wanting a different white balance with the live view of the camera, that can be set than the actual white balance when you're shooting the movies or shooting video. So the HD recording area has a slight crop from the normal DX frame because we are shooting in a 16:9 aspect ratio, so there'll be a little bit of a crop on the top and the bottom. In order for the camera to record 4K, it cannot record in the entire image area of the sensor, so you are getting a crop, a 1.5 crop of our sensor, which is already a 1.5 crop, giving you a total of about a 2.25 crop when compared to full-frame cameras. And so realize this camera is not real good at shooting wide-angle 4K because you're going to have a very, very wide-angle lens on it. But it's fantastic for shooting telephoto 4K because it gives you a little bit more telephoto capabilities. And so it depends on if you're wanting to shoot in the HD format or the 4K format. Now, these controls will be for turning these things on and off and selecting the different options. We're going to go by these in detail when we get to the movie shooting menu in the camera.
All right, well, before we move on to the back side of the question, we have a couple come in from earlier in this segment. And the first one from Weitong Lee is, does the AF fine-tune work with third-party lenses?
I haven't had a chance to try it with third-party lenses. Let me just think for a moment. The problem is that Nikon, I don't think, is able to register that information because they don't know which lens it is. When I stick this 16-80 on there, it immediately knows it's my 16-80. It's got my serial number on it. And when you stick a Sigma lens on, it doesn't recognize that information. And I haven't had a chance to test it, but my guess is that it's not going to work.
Okay, great. And one more question. This is from Jim B. Can you show us again how to turn the touch screen icon on?
Okay, so let's go to the back of the camera. And let me put my camera in the just standard live view mode. And so there is a symbol over here, but it may not always be visible. So if we hit the info button, see if we can make that, because it was disappeared. So when I just have a nice big open screen to look at here without any of the displays on there, we don't have that information. And so right now, looks like it's got touch for focusing. Let me put it in the autofocus. But I don't have any control for turning it on and off. And so you'd have to hit the info button until you see that symbol. And then you're able to cycle through the three different options, which are, of course, off, where the touchscreen no longer works, focusing and shooting a photo, and then simply just focusing. All right.